Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's a sad time. It's a sad time. I'm getting choked up. We are reviewing the Super Bowl, and that means it's the last episode of Series 6, Season 6 of the Laces Out podcast. Just myself and Paul this week, but we're wrapping up the Super Bowl for you, giving all the lowdown, telling you who won the season from our perspectives, who won the season from the NFL perspectives in all varieties, and just putting a bow on it really. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and share the podcast around. That's the big one, share the podcast around. Right, let's get started, and in a lot of ways, finished. Here we go, this is CookieCast, Laces Out.
Recording in progress.
Allegedly recording in progress. Sad times. No, not at the at the outcome, but not solely at the outcome of the Super Bowl. It's the Laces Out podcast on CookieCast. It is what will be the final Laces Out podcast of the 2023, to make it easier, season. And that's because Sunday, whatever the date was, matter of mere days ago, we sat down to enjoy the Super Bowl between the San Francisco 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm joined by my glamorous co-host, Mr. Paul Williams. How was it for you, other than the fact that you... Despise is a strong word, let's put it that way. You're not a fan of one of the two teams, and that may be the team that didn't win.
Yeah, I suppose from that perspective, I was more content than had the game gone the other way. But, to be honest, I did actually say at one point during the, I believe, third quarter, maybe the fourth quarter, the game was that poor that I'd got to the point during the course of it where I was honestly, neither team feel like they've performed well enough to actively sort of win this. So I kind of don't really care who wins it. But yeah, it was. It'll have to go down as one of the less entertaining Super Bowls I've watched, I would say. We had a conversation with a guy who had watched the 13-3, I think it was, Super Bowl where it was the Pats versus the Rams. And that one, in the entire time I've watched the game, which spanned back to about Super Bowl 48, I think, 48 or 49 or 47 maybe, when it was the Ravens versus the 49ers. It was the first one I watched live. It's the first one since then where I've actively thought this was pretty poor. Both teams not really able to move the ball around, and it didn't even seem as though it was poor from a perspective of the defense. The defense on both sides was playing particularly well. It was more just the fact that the offense just was very, very stunted on both sides.
Yeah, we've seen it before where you have situations where both defense in the Super Bowl are
absolutely hanging because they can't get off the field. They're they're wheeling out the oxygen tanks because the defensive players can't physically get enough oxygen into their bodies because they're just not off the field for long enough. And weirdly, those are often the times that the Super Bowl's better. We almost get tired of saying Super Bowls are won by the defense. However, there is a key ingredient in that your defense is there to stop the ball, to stop the movement, stop the other team. Your offense needs to move the ball down the field when it's their turn. And if you've got a situation where that's not happening, this is when you end up with this situation of... I mean, I'm not overly made any attempts to hide my opinion about a variety of different aspects of the Super Bowl. I would have rather not seen the Kansas City Chiefs at the Super Bowl this year. I feel like it would have been more entertaining, more lively, more interesting if it had have been literally any other team. If that side of the game had been filled by literally any other team. The realisation so far through the playoffs that they were going to be the team that were going to be in the Super Bowl, and then it was just whoever was going to fill the other slot. Stuff like that. Ultimately, it's not why I'm here. Going back X number of years, the whole Patriots thing. It was just dull by the end of it. It was just like getting hit in the face repeatedly. You just wanted something different. You just wanted something a point to mix things up. You knew if the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl, they were going to win the Super Bowl. So what was the point? I'd listened to a podcast in the last week that talked about how the Chiefs seem to have this ability now to squeak their way through the season, enter the playoffs, and then just dominate all the way through to the Super Bowl, and then just, in some respects, kind of walk it. I think that may have given me a false sense of, I'd really like the 49ers to win this. I feel like it'd be really good if the 49ers win. I hope, and there was an aspect of hope through 3/4 of that game where you're like, maybe, whilst at the same time knowing full well that it's just not going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something in the stats this week. There are stats this week. I think there's something in the stats talking about, repeat performances and already looking forward to next year and stuff. And it's, you can already get a boost on the winner of next year's Super Bowl, and I'll give you 50p if you don't get which team's the boost on. It's a bit like... So, yeah. There was a point in the commentary, about halfway through the third quarter, where they said about how many Super Bowls have gone to overtime. And it was round about that point in time that when you go from like this to this, to this, to this. That was about the position I was in when something was mentioned on commentary about it going to overtime, and I went, "Oh, you son of a bitch!" Because if you hadn't have said it, it wouldn't have been a thing. And yeah, it was about that point. I was like, I could just do with this kind of being over with now. Like, I just wanted a definitive score no matter which way it went, and that was that. And when it was like It's going to go to overtime. I was like, cool. So yes, not the best Super Bowl has ever been. Not the most exciting Super Bowl there's ever been. Not. I think I used a phrase the week previous. Not the Super Bowl we wanted, but the Super Bowl we all secretly knew we were getting. There's been a couple of very interesting videos popping up recently talking about how the wonderful conspiracies that went into creating all elements of that game, which were just fun to watch.
Well, before we go through the stats, let me just read to you the play sheet as it sort of like boiled down. So, opening kickoff. So the Chiefs won the toss and deferred the kickoff, or deferred the reception of the kickoff. Sorry, until the second half. So they knew they would be taking the kickoff in the first half, which meant the Niners would be getting the first possession. So San Francisco 49ers with the first possession, 5 plays for 48 yards, ending with a fumble. I believe it was it Christian McCaffrey fumbled it?
It certainly was.
So immediately turns the ball over to the Kansas City Chiefs, where they have 3 plays for 6 yards, which still took them 2 minutes, and they punted. To which the San Francisco 49ers had 4 plays for 36 yards and punted. To which the Kansas City Chiefs had 4 plays for 10 yards and punted to end the first quarter. The San Francisco 49ers then had a 10-play drive which took them 41 yards to score the opening field goal of the game. The Kansas City Chiefs then got the ball back and had a fumble of their own. This one was fumbled by Isaiah Pacheco when he was on the San Francisco 9-yard line. So a huge let-off for the San Francisco 49ers there. To which the San Francisco 49ers had a 4-play drive that went 6 yards for a punt. The Kansas City Chiefs had a 3-play 7-yard drive which went for a punt. We got our first touchdown of the game when the San Francisco 49ers had a bit of a trick play. Juwan Jennings getting the ball from Brock Purdy and then sent his own pass downfield to Christian McCaffrey. No, sorry, it was a lateral play. And then the ball went back to Christian McCaffrey, who rushed it in for the opening touchdown. And then to close out the half, the Chiefs put together a 13-play, 70-yard drive, which ended in them scoring a field goal with a couple of seconds left. They kicked the ball off to the San Francisco 49ers, who knelt out the last down to take it to the half. The second half was then a little bit better, so I won't go through all the plays in the second half, because the second half did actually have more scoring than the first did. But yeah, just that. The fact that the very first, I mean, it's not quite like the opening snap of the Broncos Seahawks Super Bowl going for the safety, but on the opening drive, fumbling the ball back to the Chiefs when you're in scoring territory was probably an indication of how the game was probably going to go. We probably should have seen it then that it was.
The fumble at that point in time was it was odd, and that's probably the dumbest thing anyone said, but a very odd situation when you look at the player that it was, the position that it happened in, etc. What made it weirder was that the equivalent player on the other team then had a fumble not long later, and it was like that. I don't overly believe in coincidence. That just seems random. Yeah, it was. I don't. I had a conversation the day of the Super Bowl where someone said to me, I don't remember the last Super Bowl I was excited for. And I was like, well, yeah, but... I mean... Yeah.
See, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I was looking forward to the game because I felt that it was two teams with good offense. You know, Kansas City's defense for the first time in what seems to be the entire Patrick Mahomes era was one of the best in the league. And looking back, last year's Chiefs-Eagles game looked on paper like it was going to be a barnstormer.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be that. So I wouldn't go so far as to say that I've not looked forward to a Super Bowl in a long time, but I must admit that the way that the game panned out as sort of did sort of tamper it for me a little bit, in which I was kind of thinking, yeah, in hindsight, it's actually probably quite a good thing that the season's over after this game, because can't really take much more of this particular scenario.
So there's that aspect that I bring it up every year. I bring it up this time every year, and certainly in the playoffs. The Super Bowl is the tip of the mountain. It's where everything should have risen to the very top. It is the tip of the spear, the top of the mountain. And then you have to ask yourself, is that what we got? And in theory, this team on paper is better than this team on paper, and this team, reigning defending champion, that sort of situation. And it's supposed to be the best of the best. When, yeah, to not get too in the weeds, I fully agree with what you've said there. I think I'm more glad that it's just. I think we'd like to close the book on this season, and sort of look ahead. I've been listening to another podcast, which I am. It's not only a weekly podcast; it's twice weekly, and I'm a little bit behind on it. So at the point in time, I picked it back up a couple of days ago. The person that does the podcast was watching the first round of playoff games and talking about what they saw as like possible Super Bowls and this, that, and the other. And it was like stuff like talking about the Bills and they can't do it to the fans again this year, and it's like, oh gee. Like talking about like Dolphins, Ravens, like, oh, I really hope the Lions can do so. It's like, oh geez, that's gonna really be painful in a couple of weeks' time.
It's always that's always one of those things, like when you get a bit behind on podcast schedule and you end up listening to ones where you know what the outcome of the thing that you're sort of building up to has already sort of happened, and you do kind of sort of like part of you. That sort of morbid curiosity just sort of like kick you where it's like, ooh, are they going to say something that's like going to come back to sort of like either bite him in the arse or sound incredibly stupid in hindsight? Stuff like
weirdly, to give him his dues, because bearing in mind, as far as predicting games goes, he must have 100% track record of getting games wrong. But to give him his dues, at the start of the playoffs, predicted that the Chiefs would be in the Super Bowl. So I was like, yeah, well, that one's not going to come back to bite you. And said, of all of the teams, the 49ers was probably the contender as well. And it was like, well, there you go. You managed to pick the Super Bowl X number of weeks out. So well done to you. Do you want to deliver the final blow and tell everybody what the end score was and who were the victors?
Well, so do we want to do, because obviously we've got all of our predictions to go through. Do we want to just give the overall flavour of what happened with the game, then do the stats, then go through all of our stuff?
That's the way I saw it. Yeah, deliver the killing blow, and then let's pick over the corpse.
Okay. So obviously we went through the joy that was the first quarter, which ended up scoreless, and the second quarter, where a touchdown finally was scored. So at the half, I don't know if it'll come up in the stats, so I won't say it, and I'll just hope it comes up in the stats, and if it doesn't, I'll raise it myself. But at the half, it was 10-3 to the San Francisco 49ers. At the end of regulation, it was 19-19. And then the game went into overtime, where the 49ers decided to take the ball first and scored a field goal, obviously not realising that the overtime rules have changed for the postseason, in which both teams will have at least one possession of the ball.
So, not to interrupt, but to interrupt, that's come up in a couple of things I've listened to over the last few days. Why they chose to take the ball. Possibly one of the weirdest decisions there has ever been. Why they were like, we'll take the ball. It was like, no.
So,
Give them the ball. Just
I don't know if you'd seen, but apparently Kyle Shanahan in his post-match press conference had come out and said that he admitted that not all of the players knew the details of the new overtime regulations. Which, if it's true, there is absolutely no excuse for, because they go through the details with the team on the field, and obviously there's the fact that obviously it's given to the players before the season starts and all that sort of jazz as well. So yeah, the 49ers took the first possession of overtime, got it within field goal range and kicked the field goal, and then the Chiefs took over, went down, managed to go the full 75 yards and scored a touchdown, which ended the game. So the final score was 25-22 in favour of the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, like Mr. Cook has said, we do have some stats provided to us, I believe, by the usual source. Is this correct?
Yes, another week where I can't confirm how the stats mistress got the stats. I'm going to say, as it's been through the entire season, it was probably from USA Today. But I cannot confirm that, so if it's not, don't shoot the messenger. These are your NFL Super Bowl 58 stats. Brought to us by the Stats Mistress. Brought to her by sources unknown at this point in time. Our first stat is this. Super Bowl 58 became the most watched television event in history. The Super Bowl 58 featuring the Kansas City Chiefs versus the San Francisco 49ers has shattered all previous TV rating records with a historic estimated 123.7 million viewers. That is mental. Number 2, in 58 Super Bowl matchups, there have been just 9 teams to hoist even, the Lombardi Trophy in back-to-back seasons, while others have reached the Super Bowl in back-to-back years, not all have been able to finish the job in the ultimate game of the season. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs were the latest to join legendary company by closing out the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 58. The Chiefs have now won 3 championships in the past 5 seasons and are the first time since the New England Patriots during the 2003-04 seasons that an NFL team has won back-to-back Super Bowls. It's one of those things, just to break away from the stats for a moment, when you see the Chiefs in the same stat as the Patriots, you kind of go, yeah, because they are just the new Patriots at this point. Number 4, no team has ever achieved a three-peat in the Super Bowl era. The Packers, though, won the NFL Championship game in 1966 before winning both Super Bowl 1 and 2 for an unofficial three-peat. My final stat is this. This marked only the second Super Bowl to go to overtime, with the last being Super Bowl 51 in 2017 when Tom Brady and the New England Patriots came back from a 28-3 down defeat. To defeat the Atlanta Falcons 34-28. With Tom Brady being mentioned there, I don't know if everybody saw the Dunkin' Donut advert. However, I can confirm that today Dunkin' released the full uncut version of the advert, which is just short of 5 minutes long, and pretty much every moment in it is an absolute banger. So if you get the opportunity, check that out. I believe, having sent them to you, you have other stats for us.
I do indeed. Do we need to take a little short breather before I give my stats, or are we good?
Well, I mean, you probably get them in. I believe we're at, to peek behind the curtain, we're at 9 minutes.
In that case, I will continue. So, Patrick Mahomes won Super Bowl MVP for the 3rd time in his career. He is now tied with Hall of Famer Joe Montana for the 2nd most Super Bowl MVPs in NFL history, trailing only Tom Brady, who has won 5. Mahomes also becomes the 3rd player ever to win the award in consecutive seasons, after also claiming in the Chiefs Super Bowl 57 win over the Philadelphia Eagles. Remind me of that when we come to discuss other stuff later. Despite being Mahomes' leading receiver, tight end Travis Kelce, who had 9 catches for 93 yards, became most notable in the Super Bowl for his angry outburst with coach Andy Reid. After the win, Kelce laughed off the incident and Reid squashed the whole thing too. Yes, no prizes for guessing the most memed section of the Super Bowl.
I think there are two running at the moment that are both competing for which is the most memed. But you know, how about that day?
Two more for me, just to finish off with the stats. Kansas City Chiefs guard Nick Allegretti played most of Super Bowl 58 injured. Allegretti played all 79 snaps in Kansas City's 25-22 win over the San Francisco 49ers, despite sustaining a torn UCL in the 2nd quarter. Oh my God. And New Orleans is set to host Super Bowl 59 in 2025, and it will be played at the Caesars Superdome, home of the New Orleans Saints. It marks the first time that New Orleans will host a Super Bowl since 2013. That was, of course, the Super Bowl where the lights went out. But which two teams will we see at that stadium?
The Kansas City Chiefs and another team.
Watch this space, ladies and gentlemen. That's all the stats. One stat that wasn't in there, actually, that I thought I would bring up was the fact that obviously this is the third time in what that he's been in the Super Bowl that Mahomes has been down by 10 points and still come back to win the game. So obviously the key is don't put him down by 10 points. Put him down by more than 10 points, as the Bucs found when they beat him.
Indeed. As alluded to previously, we will need to step away for a moment to compose ourselves from the stats. Some hefty stats there to refresh ourselves before we dive into what is the most important part of the Super Bowl weekend, finding out who won in our little competition. You don't need to go anywhere because we will be right back. Stay tuned.
Recording in progress.
Yes, indeed. So, main game discussion done, dusted, put away in a neat little corner for the season. All that's left to do is to go through myself, Mr. Cook, Mr. Womansey and Mr. Moore's predictions that we each made last week for the big game, and then go through the season-long predictions that we all made throughout the course of the season. So, obviously last week, myself and the gents, we each picked who we thought would win the game, the winning score in the game, the first and last touchdown scorers, the colour of the Gatorade shower for the winning coach, and the game's MVP. 6 categories in total, therefore a total of 6 points on offer. Who would do the best? So, on the game winner, Stu was the only one to take the 49ers. The rest of us took the Kansas City Chiefs. So a point so far for myself, Mr. Cook and Mr. Moore. The game final score, no one had 25-22. The closest, or the people that had the scores were as follows. Matt had 21-17, so 38 points total. Matt had 24-17, 41 points total. Andy had 31-24, which is 55 points total. And I had 34-28, which was 62 points in total. So no one was bang on, but the closest person, which was only 6 points out, was technically Stu, with his 24-17 pick. So I've given Stu the point for being the closest to the mark on that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
First touchdown scorer, Andy had taken Travis Kelce, who sadly never found the end zone. Matt had taken Isaiah Pacheco, who sadly never found the end zone. Myself and Stu, however, had taken Christian McCaffrey, who was in fact the first touchdown scorer. The last touchdown scorer, myself, I had taken Travis Kelce. Matt had taken Brandon Ayuk again. Neither one of those found the end zone in the entirety of the game. Andy and Stu had both taken Isaiah Pacheco as their last touchdown scorer. Again, he never actually found the end zone. The actual person who scored the last touchdown, it did in fact end up being a walk-off touchdown winner, no less, was Mecole Hardman, who of course, as they covered on the commentary, had started the season on the books of the New York Jets. So do with that information what you will. The winning Gatorade shower colour for the season.
I'm annoyed about this one. And I feel that's justified. That's all I'm saying.
The reason why Mr. Andrew Cook may feel aggrieved and slightly annoyed on his Gatorade shower colour is that in past years, I believe his go-to colour has been purple. If I flick back in the book to last season's Super Bowl picks, the winning colour of the Gatorade shower was purple, selected by Mr. Andrew Cook. The winning Gatorade shower colour this year was purple, selected by No one. I had taken green/yellow. Matt had taken green/yellow. Stu had taken red/pink. Andy had taken orange. You can clearly see the disappointment on all of our faces, as no one gets the point for the correct game of the So, the game's MVP. Stu had picked Christian McCaffrey. This was incorrect. Myself, Andy, and Matt had all picked Patrick Mahomes, which was, of course, the correct answer. All this means is that Andy, Stu, and Matt all had 2 points each from a possible 6, with my Chiefs to win, Christian McCaffrey for the first touchdown, and game MVP to be Patrick Mahomes. That gives me 3 points, and does in fact give me the win for the week. So I've just added it to the regular scores that were going on for the rest of the season in the weekly picks. And all that does to the end scores is it puts me on 6 points for the season. The guest on 8 points for the season. Now I know you're thinking, 6 plus 8, that's 14. There's only 22 weeks of the season. So there could only be another 8 points left. So we must have a tie situation. That's where you would be slightly incorrect, as we did have a tie in one of the midway points of it was the Super Wildcard weekend. Both myself, Mr. Cook, and my dear wife each had 3 out of 6 selections correct in our Super Wildcard weekend predictions. So we each took a half point as opposed to a third of a point, because the metrics would have got all kinds of messy with halves getting added to thirds and whatnot. So I just gave out an extra half point, which means that the winner of the overall weekly predictions with 8.5 points, take a bow, Mr. Andrew Cook.
Wow.
Well done to you, sir.
Wow. Honestly, this is a moment. I'm not gonna lie. This is a big thing. Oh, I promised myself I wasn't gonna get emotional if it went this way. I want to thank obviously the Academy for everything that it's done for me. I want to thank the people who voted. I want to thank the teams that played. Just everybody that was there for me. The times it got tough, the times that I didn't think I could do it, and the people that pushed me forward, drove me on to get this victory. It's just thanks. It's just a lot of thanks. I feel I'm blessed. I'm blessed.
Sadly, because myself and Andy had both picked the Chiefs to win the game, there was no way we could do a side bet element to the game without getting into sort of total yardage per team, number of receptions per player. It would have got an awful lot messy. So, unfortunately, we did have to end the side bet with the details that had come out from the NFL Championship weekend round of fixtures, which meant that ending the side bet this season with 50 points was Mr. Andrew Cook, but winning the side bet with 54 points was my good self. So we'll see how the side bet pans out for next season. It seemed to work again this year. So
I think as a concept that I stole from another podcast, I feel that it works. I think we saw which way the wind was blowing a ways before the end. I think it got away from me early doors, and whereas in the previous season there was like a point in time where I think I had a clean sweep and you'd had an off week, and then it was just like each week after that I had like one more point than you, and it just sort of took. I mean, as we've said several times, it took us right up to that last sort of point in time. Whereas I think this season you got a clear head above, and then that was it. You were off to the races. So, well done to you. You've played an absolute blinder there, and we each take a victory. We should have some kind of tie break, virtual arm wrestle, something like that.
We'll think of something. We'll think of something in the off season or on one of the other podcasts that we frequent to find out a way to truly work out who the true man is. We'll figure something. So all that's left is our season-long predictions that were made for myself and Mr. Cook, at least, way back before even week 1 had kicked off, where we were asking ourselves and our guests that we got on during the course of the season to name a regular season league MVP, and then who we felt would make the Super Bowl, who would win the Super Bowl, and who would be the game's MVP. So let's go through the MVP picks and see if anyone guessed correctly. I was out of the running almost as quickly as Mr. Cook was out of the running, as he had selected Aaron Rodgers as his league MVP.
I still think it is hands down one of the most inspired selections, possibly in history. As the man himself said on a recent podcast, 3 plays into the first game of the season, his season was over.
Not the best. not the best way to start a season. Like I say, I was out of the running almost as quickly when I'd taken Joe Burrow to be my league MVP. Sadly, it did last a little bit longer than the 3 snaps that Mr. Rodgers managed before, strangely enough, snapping his Achilles tendon. But Joe Burrow was taken out of the season and the injury around week 12 or 13.
Yeah.
At which point he would have needed a bit of a miracle anyway to have been named the league MVP. There was a lot of names. There was a lot of people going for Patrick Mahomes as the league's MVP. Stu, Mark, and James all picked Mahomes as their choice of league MVP. Sadly, didn't get anywhere near with that one. The closest 2, by the way, no one got this correct, but the closest 2 were James Forrester Gray, who had said Christian McCaffrey, who I believe was in the running all the way up till awards evening, the Super Bowl awards evening. And the only other person other than the winner, Lamar Jackson, who got a single vote in the running, was Matt Moore's selection of Josh Allen. So I suppose by default, because he did get a first place nomination, Matt probably wins that one, as it were, as he was the only person who ended up getting a nomination for a first place Hall of Fame choice.
Yeah, I agree with that.
An MVP choice, I do say. Right. So, no winners in the regular season MVP selections. Did anyone successfully pick the Super Bowl matchup? Well, yes, they did. As Stuart Woodburn correctly selected the Kansas City Chiefs to play the San Francisco 49ers. He was the only one to pick the game correctly, and he did have the Chiefs versus the Eagles, as did James. However, Stu had selected the San Francisco 49ers to win and Christian McCaffrey to be the game's MVP. So, misses on both of those accounts, sadly. James had the Chiefs versus the Eagles and had selected the Eagles to win the game with Jalen Hurts to be the MVP. Misses on both accounts. However, Mr. Andrew Cook had selected the Chiefs-Eagles Super Bowl, so didn't get the game correct, but had picked the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl and Patrick Mahomes to be the game MVP. Sir,
this guy,
A bow.
Weirdly, that is not what I thought you were going to say there, and I don't know why. I don't want to be the person that's like, oh, it's a safe bet, but paid off in the end, isn't it? I was going to say, and I feel like this is almost like rubbing salt in the wound, but thinking back to when I made my Super Bowl selection of going, oh, Eagles absolutely going to be in the running, and obviously through the regular season it was like, yep, the Eagles are definitely in the running, and then there's just that complete collapse of that team. And to think now, obviously been through the playoffs and stuff, to think now that the Eagles were originally and through the season a contender, to then be like, now it's like, well, what were you thinking? It's like, just strange to look back on that. But yeah, I'll probably pick the same. In fact, you could probably write it in the book now. I'll probably pick the same next season, and I think I've got a reasonable chance. Is that it then?
That's it.
Oh man!
For another season, we are done and dusted.
That means I've got to drag the trunk out of the loft and put all my little bits in. My Patrick Mahomes, little doll, my Lamar Jackson. Just put them, line them all up. Put the dust cover on, close the lid, lock it, and drag it all the way back up and put it into the attic until next season. I say it every year, we've done 6 seasons of the Laces Out podcast, which, reasonable run. And every year I was like, oh, I get to this point and it's real sad. And I think it's in the last season, I was like, oh my God, it's the longest off season in any sport ever. But when it was worked out, it's actually not that long, because I had in my head it was like 9 months, and it's actually not. It's a lot shorter than you think it is. Already this season shaping up to be bigger and better than any previous season. I think they're going to more other countries, if that makes any sense. I believe they're scheduled, and I'm pretty sure there's more UK games this season as well.
No, I think it's sticking at 3 again.
I thought they'd up to it, but
attacking on Sao Paulo, I think, Brazil.
That might have been it, yeah.
Or maybe an extra German.
Well, there we go. 2023 season comes to a close with the Super Bowl, and come back this year, but next season. I want to take the opportunity to thank all of our guests over the course of the season. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Stats Mistress for week in, week out providing the stats on the reg. Big thank you to our watchers and listeners, otherwise there'd be literally no point in doing this. And the biggest of biggest thank yous to my co-host with the co-most, master of the book, the collector of knowledge, Mr. Paul Williams. And that is in filming and film and TV world, that's a wrap on season 6 of the Laces Out podcast. Join us for season 7 pre-season podcast in a mere matter of months. But until then, you can find us lurking around in other podcast spaces, football, wrestling, weekly podcasts. and yeah, others. There we go. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, and I'll see you and these lovely people very soon. But for now, it's tatty byes.
So there you go. Super Bowl done. Everything done. Podcast done for another season. Super Bowl done for another season. NFL season done for another season. Before you leave us, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. And check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button for you to get in touch with us. That is it for this one and this season. Until next time, next season, I'm going to say bye and I'll see you then.
Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode of CookieCast, please like, share and subscribe.